So my girl Nicole Segreto is back with me today, and we are going to chat all things travel planning. Sometimes life just sucks, and sometimes it freaking rocks. We will discuss all the things from family and real estate to travel and just life in general. So take a seat, or don't, you do you, and welcome to the Lambadass Podcast. What's up, girl? How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
You're not talking into the mic,
Oh,
so people
sorry.
are going to... It's
sorry.
okay.
Hi, I'm good.
Like, nobody's going to know how you're doing if you don't talk into the mic. It's so funny. I just hate having to turn it up and down because different people speak in different volumes. And oh my word. Okay, so today I want to talk travel.
Because you're leaving again.
I am. We are going away for spring break. My kids are missing school. I'm not one on making sure my kids go to school every day. I mean, like, that's the easiest way to say it. Okay. Now, of course, school is 100% a priority. Like, they need to go, they need to turn their stuff in, they need to do all the things. But if an opportunity arises where I can have them miss a couple days prior to or after coming back from like a school break, if you will, I'm going to take that opportunity. And I know the school hates it and all the things, but I don't care. My kids are only young once, and I saw how quickly, oh my gosh, so quickly it went by with the first two that I don't want to miss a moment with my last two, I say.
And you have one that will be a senior next year, right?
I can't. Yes. Do you know that, like, I'm already...
2 more birds.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Like, I'm just like, this is crazy. So he will be a senior next year, and I'm already worried about the shit I'm going to be missing. And I haven't even missed anything. And I don't plan on missing anything because I'm actually scheduling my entire schedule around his.
Aww,
like,
that's nice.
Well, I'm doing the best that I can anyways. Because, like, for example, this year he has prom, and the same weekend that we're going to be in Havasu is the same weekend that his prom is. And we didn't put 2 and 2 together because he was supposed to be in Havasu with us. And so he's like, well, I guess I'm not going to Lake Havasu. I'm all, oh my gosh. So my son and daughter-in-law are going to make sure that they have all the pictures and everything. But it's only because he has a senior prom that I'm not like super upset about it. And I know when the time comes, I'm going to be bummed. But my bank account's very happy that I'm only taking 2 kids on this vacation because that's the only one who's happy about it, because my other 2, obviously my oldest is married, and then my 19-year-old has a job and he has his firefighter classes and all the things. But we're going on a cruise, and we're meeting up. A very good friend of ours lives in Spring, Texas. So we're flying in a smidge early to spend a couple days with him because we haven't seen him in a long time. And the boys are going to be so stoked. They call him Uncle Tim and all the things. So we're going to go hang out with him for a little bit. But
and you have other people meeting you too, right?
We do. Our best friends are meeting us there. My sister and her family.
Oh, I didn't know your best friends. Oh, wait. Yes, you told me this yesterday.
The Mitchells.
Yes,
yeah.
Right.
So they're going with us. And then my sister and her husband and their 3 kids. Like, it's going to be so much fun. And it was really cute. Actually, the other night, the Mitchells were over. We were in the spa with our other friends, the Taitulas. And the Mitchell's son came up to me. He's like, Miss Lauren, I am so excited that we are going for 7 days. He's like, because the last cruise we went on was only 3, first world problems, right? And I'm like, yes, I understand that. And he's like, but the thing is like, when we meet people, I love that he said this. And he goes, when we meet people, you know, you only have 3 or 4 days to like hang out with them and connect and stuff. He's like, now we get like a full week. So I'm like,
sweet.
You are not your mother's child. You love meeting people. Your mom.
How old is this boy?
He's a senior.
Oh, okay.
He's a senior in high school.
That's really cute.
I know. And it's cool too because they have a daughter who's in college and she's not going either. So we're literally just taking, I call them our littles, but they're not that little. We're only taking our littles. So it'll be fun though, because they're going to have each other. They're going to meet people. And I also think it's really great to have some one-on-one time with your parent, or less kids time with your parents, if you will, because my kids are going to have 2 kids.
Yes, less division.
There you go. And so I think that quality time is going to be amazing. But I have to tell you, the one thing that I get asked all the time about traveling is for recommendations and how I do things. And I think that this podcast, when people ask me for recommendations, I'm just going to send this to them. No, I'm kidding. It won't be as detailed, obviously, but I get a ton of questions. I know.
I've been in the car with you and like you're dealing with 5 clients and then suddenly someone calls and says, where should I book this or da-da-da, and you're like a travel agent as well.
I know, it's crazy. And it's funny to me too because real estate is ever evolving, as you know. And with the real estate evolving, they always talk about travel agents. And they're like, travel agents were such a big thing 10, 15 years ago. And now look at where they're at. And I'm thinking, all the people that have called me, if I could have worked for them and made money off of the things that I did, like travel agents, I think are still in such demand. And I think the reason is because, excuse me, I had this, Connor sent me this TikTok, I think, was it a TikTok or was it a reel? And it was about this guy who says, you know, they talk about how Americans are not well traveled because they don't go over to Europe all that often, right? It's and I also think Americans have this predisposition that going to Europe is very expensive. And obviously it depends on what your expectation of expensive is. But to be quite frank with you, I can take my family to Europe for less money than I can take my family to a vacation in the States.
Really?
Yes, very much so. It is cheaper for me to go to Europe for 2 or 3 weeks than it is to go 2 or 3 weeks here in the United States. Excuse me. Because here's the thing. In Europe, I can get from London to Paris, you know, via train ride in, I think it's an hour and a half. I think it's 90 minutes. Don't quote me, but I think it's like 90 minutes. And you can take the channel, and I want to say it's like $100. And then once I get to Paris, I can fly from Paris to Munich for like $45 one way for $45. And then once I'm in Munich, I can, you know, get on a cruise ship and do a river cruise, you know, for minimal costs. Whereas here, I was looking at cruising down the Mississippi. I thought that would be cool. And by the way, I know the Mississippi River is very ugly. I know it's like super brown and stuff, but I just thought like there's so much history and stuff. That would be amazing. American history. And thousands of dollars. I'm talking like $6,000 for 2 people.
Wow.
And maybe I was looking at the wrong cruise line. I'm totally open to that idea, but the fact that there were even cruises that were river cruises that were that expensive, I can go cruise the Rhine for $6,000 on a very elite cruise line. So for 8 days, not even just 6 or 7. So it's very eye-opening. Now, the problem that a lot of people have is when they go to Europe, there's a specific place they want to go to. So let's say you want to go to Budapest. By the way, it said Budapest. It's not Budapest. So let's say you want to go to Budapest. Yes, I learned that a long time ago when we were there. And you want to fly home from Budapest. It's like $1,200. It's really expensive because flying home from Budapest, you have a layover somewhere else. 9 times out of 10, it's depending on what airline you're on, you're probably going to stop in Munich, or you'll stop in. You can stop in Paris. I personally love flying in and out of Paris because I know Paris very well. And I also think that it's very inexpensive to fly to Paris. I can get a one-way ticket to Paris for $217.
Wow. So how do you first plan your trips?
Okay.
Do you decide destination, or is it based on, oh, this is really cheap, let's go here this year? How do you work that?
Both. So I know, for example, when Connor graduates high school, he really wants to go to Thailand and he wants to go to Vietnam and Singapore. So I join Facebook groups that specialize in those things. So there's one specifically for Thailand that I'm a part of, and they ask amazing questions. If I'm going for 3 weeks, where should I go? And I literally will sit there and I will read all the comments, not all of them, but I will read a lot of the comments. I do a lot of research. So Connor graduates next June, and we're not going until December of next year. So not December 2024, but December 2025.
Okay.
So it gives you an idea of how much research I'm doing within how much time. And what I do is I read through all the things and I find out, and then I do separate research. So Krabi is one of the places in Thailand that we really want to go to. And so I'm going to look into that. And then I actually have some friends of mine who have been to Thailand multiple times. And my sister-in-law's from Thailand. Well, her family's from Thailand. And so I would, of course, ask them, how to do things and what to do and stuff like that. So I get as many ideas as I possibly can, but I always research what people tell me. So my sister-in-law's like, you have to go and get a massage from the ladies at the women's prison. And I'm like, that sounds insane to me. Like I'm literally going to get rubbed down by some lady in a prison.
Wow.
Yes, but that's the thing that they do. And that's the other thing too that I think Americans really miss is culturally, it's very different. In Europe, people are very much, so David and I know some of the bartenders at the Crillon Hotel in Paris, which has so much history. That's where Marie Antoinette stayed prior to her beheading. She was beheaded just outside of it.
Wow.
There's so much Marie Antoinette history that I geek over. But anyways, so those people like that, like we sat there, we talked, we became friends on, Instagram and stuff, but they're the type of people where it's like, hey, next time you come, my sister has a place over here. She'll rent it to you for next to nothing. You have to stay there. We want to take care of you. They're very, they have a different mindset over in Europe where they work to live. Here we live to work. Like, I can't believe, it's funny, I was actually thinking about this earlier today. David gets 3 weeks of vacation. That is it. He gets 3 weeks off. He can take them consecutively, and he can also roll 1 week over. So if he only goes on vacation for 2 weeks, he can roll 1 week over. Now, his schedule's a little flexible because he's in sales. So yes, there are times where he can work from different places and stuff. Or if he has to go to an HVAC convention in Las Vegas, he can work from there. Like it is very flexible. I will say that. But he can only take legitimate time off 3 weeks and 2 if he wants to roll a week over. So there they go on holiday for 4 weeks at a time. Like it's very weird to them that we only get so much vacation time. So I think that's also something to be noted. Anyways, back to planning. So I do a lot of research and I do ask a lot of people questions, much like how people ask me. I think I go into more depth than people go into me when I'm asking them things, but it's all good. At least I'm getting the details.
And how do you decide to do a cruise or to go directly to those destinations? 'Cause
Okay.
you do both.
I do both. I love cruising. In fact, in 2020, when everybody went back to school, Connor, I said, what's the one thing you guys missed about, like, with COVID? And I'm thinking, they're going to say they're friends. They're going to say something. And Connor's like, cruising. I'm like, what the hell? Cruising is a very economical way to travel, especially with large families. It's great because they have adjoining rooms. So you can still have the privacy of, having your own room with your spouse if that's something you're interested in. Or, you can have up to 5 people in a room on the newer cruise ships. On the older ones, sometimes there's only 4 people. But even if you get an inside stateroom, I mean, you can go for like $2,000 for 4 people.
Wow.
And that's very reasonable, in my opinion, for travel. $2,000 for a week vacation is fantastic.
And food included.
Food included. That does not include alcohol beverages, and that does not include sodas, depending on what cruise line you go on. Some cruise lines do include them. We've done cruise line. We've cruised on Disney, we've cruised on Celebrity, and we've cruised on Carnival. Out of the 3, my kid's favorite is Carnival.
Really?
Yes, which is hilarious because I know there are some people that swear Carnival is someplace they would never go. And I will tell you this, if you have only gone on a 3 or 4 day Carnival cruise, those things can even run you like $200, $300. So if it's cheaper for you to go on a cruise than it is for you to go to Vegas. If you go on a 3 day or 4 day, I highly recommend you do a 7 day on Carnival, because it's just very different. Definitely different people, and stuff like that. On a 3 or 4 day, you're going to get the partiers. You're going to get those people wanting to be drunk, for the full 48 hours or 72 hours that they're on that ship. The 7 days are more generated, towards, or geared, if you will, towards families and stuff like that. But to me, I just think that that's a great way to cruise. Now, if you live in California or you live in Florida, if you live in Maryland, if you live in Texas, New Orleans, like if you live in certain areas, it's great because you could just jump on the cruise ship. You don't have to fly anywhere. Naturally, if you're including airfare into that, it can be pricier. But I will tell you, we're going on a cruise ship. Let me go back. Let me answer your question. How do I decide if we're going on a cruise or not? 9 times out of 10, if I'm on limited time or it's been an area that I've never been to before, I like to cruise it.
Okay.
So if I'm on limited time, because I feel like on a cruise ship, I'm going to see a bunch of little things that I can then go back and explore. Same thing, same reason for if I've never been there before. So we did a cruise to Greece, not to Greece. We did a cruise of Greece, and we went to, a couple different Greek islands. I wanted to do that because my concern was if I got to one place and I didn't like it and I was there for another 3 days, I was stuck.
True.
And especially when you travel with a big family in Europe, you kind of have to plan ahead. Not kind of, you do have to plan ahead. Things in Europe are not made for big families. So you have to know what you're doing and when you're doing it. The opposing side to that is if I loved an area and I was only there for 2 days, I wanted to spend 4, I wasn't able to do that. So by doing a cruise of the Greek islands, I was able to see where I would go back and where I would spend more time and those sorts of things. And if I'm going to be honest, if I never go back to the Greek islands, I would be okay with that. There's so many other places that I would love to see and explore before going back to Greece. Greece was beautiful. We had a great time. I loved it. It was beautiful. It was just a lot different than I had expected. So I think if I would have gone and flown there, I think I would have been bummed. I really enjoyed going back on the cruise and getting martinis. They have a martini bar, and I loved sitting there and just relaxing. The relaxing element on a cruise is huge to me.
I love cruises. I've done 3. So we did 2 Disney cruises, and then I think a princess one, but each one was 7 days.
Sure.
And I hate packing, and so I love that I only have to pack and unpack once.
Yes, I agree.
And then you just wake up and you're in this new destination. I remember we ported into, I think it was St. Thomas. That's where all the colorful houses, right?
Well, St. Martin has colorful houses too.
I don't think it was St. Martin, though. I think it was St. Thomas.
Okay.
And I like a balcony because I like to sit out there with my coffee or at night with my wine. And I just remember opening the drapes, and it was like we were transported into this new place, and all of our stuff was there. And I love being able to come back at the end of a day from exploring and showering, and they're ready to go for you. You don't have to worry about making a dinner reservation, and it was very relaxing.
I agree. What do you say to people who get seasick or don't like to be? I have a lot of people who say that they don't want to be on the ship that long, in a confined space where they can't leave. What do you say to those people? Did that bother you at all?
It didn't. I liked the days at sea, to be honest. And there was a lot of activities going on. And so we did all of the activities. We learned about diamonds and things on the ship. I don't know. It's almost like this forced separation from society.
Yes.
Because you don't have access to your phone. Well, at least I didn't. I didn't have this. I didn't pay for the service. And not that I'm a doctor and I'm on call in that sense, but it was so nice knowing that I had no access to my phone and being out at sea. I enjoyed it. And I don't really get seasick, so I didn't have any problems.
Okay, so I get super seasick.
Really?
I have, and I have so seasick. Even sometimes when we're in Havasu and we're on the boat, if we're rocking too long, I'm like, you got to move the boat. We got to start moving.
Oh, you know what? I do. On little boats out in the water that's not moving, yes, I do get seasick. But on the cruises, I didn't get seasick.
So I don't either. And that's where I was getting at. On smaller boats, I definitely do. But on cruise ships, I never do. And by the way, the very first cruise I ever took Sweetie Pie on was for our anniversary. And our anniversary is the end of November. And we were cruising down to Mexico. So that's when storms and stuff are hitting. I can remember vividly sitting in the room where they do all the shows and stuff. And you could feel the boat go up, and then you hear it go boom and smack down on the water, and then boom and smack down on the water constantly. And I was like, oh shit. And even then I didn't get sick. I was totally fine. I've also been on cruise ships in January, same thing. And I'm usually pretty good. I don't have any issues. Yesterday Connor asked me, hey mom, how many sea days do we have? And I was like 4. He's like, yes. So even my kids love sea days, and David loves taking me on cruises because I don't have my phone. Nobody can call me. I'm not going to be answering any emails or anything. So thank you in advance, because it is because of you that I'm able to go on cruises and not worry about anything. So cruising to me is by far incredible. I think it's extremely economical. I highly recommend 7 days over 3 to 4 days. I just think all in all, it's just a better experience, especially if you've never been cruising before.
And you're doing another cruise at the end of the year, right?
That's okay. So that's a river cruise. So I'll tell this story because I think it's kind of cool. So my parents during Christmas time, my sister was down with her family and my dad's over and he's talking about, when I die, this is how I want my money split. And your mom and I've discussed it and da, 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 da. And I looked at him and I'm like, I don't want your money. I want your real estate, but I don't want your money. And so I said, Dad, spend it while you and Mom are, by the way, my parents are really young, like super young. My dad, okay, I'm 40. I'm going to be 41. So my dad's going to be 63 this year.
Oh, very young. Yeah.
Or 64 this year. And my mom's going to be like 62. So they're super young and they are very healthy. They still work. Like they're super vibrant. They're very involved. So I'm like, you guys need to spend your money with us. And so my dad's like, okay. He's like, I'll think about that. Yeah, maybe we could plan a vacation or something. And I'm like, yeah, let me know what you're thinking. Not at all was I thinking he was going to say what he said. So the next day, him and my mom come over and he's like, okay, we thought about what you said. We're taking you all on a European river cruise, which
so cool.
I have done before a couple times. And I can't tell you how amazing they are. The itinerary that we're on, I've actually done before. I think there's one stop that I haven't been to on this itinerary, but I am so excited. And my parents are like, we're spending your inheritance on you. And I'm like, good. I'd rather you watch me enjoy what you worked for than sit here and leave me all this shit when you're gone.
And then you guys are creating memories together that you'll have forever.
Exactly. So my parents are taking Sweetie Pie and myself, my brother and his wife, and my sister and her husband, and then my mom and dad. So they're going to have their kids. And that, I will say, cruising in Europe is a little bit easier when you're on river cruises because you do have Wi-Fi. You can call, you can do all those things because the river's, not the ocean. So it's a lot narrower. So you're closer to land and stuff. Like you can totally see land, but it's so beautiful to go through and see that. But yes, that is the plan. We are doing that. But again, even to jump over to Europe, it's still far. I will tell you, flights to Paris are a lot cheaper than what I just paid for my family to fly to Houston.
And is there an airline specific that you always look at?
So there's a couple. I really like British Airways will run some really good deals. So you kind of have to be on the lookout. But again, that also depends on where you want to go in Europe.
So do you have a flight tracker? Is that what you're doing when you're looking at your flights?
I am now because we're looking at the trip when we go with my parents. David and I are looking at starting in Iceland because we were supposed to go for our anniversary and we didn't because of the eruptions. We talked about this. We actually talked about it on the podcast. So we're looking at redoing that, but flights for the two of us one way are like $1,200. That's $600. That's expensive. So the other part of me, I'm looking and I'm like, okay, well, what if we fly into London and then have a long layover? Like I'm looking at like 24, 23 hour layover and then jumping on a flight and going to London or going to Iceland. Is that cheaper? Because my thought is if I have 23 hours in London, I can go run and see the sights, kind of what you did. You inspired me to go see the sights, go get fish and chips, go have tea, do these things, and then jump up to Iceland and enjoy Iceland for 3 or 4 days. I'm looking to see if that's cheaper. So I will reroute myself based on price, which is why I'm able to travel so much during the year because the average person can't go to Paris 3 times a year. But if you're paying $217 one way, so you're under $500 there and back, including luggage, like that's very reasonable to me.
Absolutely.
And if I can share a room with my mom or my sister, or whoever it is that I'm going with, then I'm cutting down on price. And the things that we want to do, go and sit at a cafe and go and roam the streets and maybe have one really nice dinner and go see a show. Like those things, while yes, they do add up depending on the size group that you're with, at the end of the day, my portion is relatively small in comparison. But I'll tell you, we did, there was one vacation where we did the South and of the United States. So we flew into New Orleans, we stayed a couple days in New Orleans, and then we went to, we drove over and saw some family that was in Alabama. We drove to Pensacola. So we rented a car, to rent a car, to fly, like even a little puddle jumper airplane from Orlando to Key West, because we ended in Key West. Was like $200. And it's like, damn, a little puddle jumper over there is $45. I'm paying $217 here. And that is per person. I want to say, no, It wasn't 217. It was like $200 or like $198. But still, that's expensive. And then when I'm in Orlando, my kids want to go to the parks. And how much is it to go to the parks? And how much? So I feel that it's just more expensive. Even Paris, Disney is less expensive.
Really?
Yes. Or Disney Paris, however you say it. Even that is less expensive. Yes. So I think it's really about budgeting and dialing it in because, people take road trips. How much is your gas costing you? I know in the state of California, our gas prices are over $5. So, filling up a big old thing and hauling, something behind you or whatever, that really does add up. So if you're really looking at the bottom line, it's not all that expensive. But as far as planning goes, that's, in a nutshell, pretty much how we do things. Going to other countries can be a little more daunting, so that's why I think people don't do it. But I will tell you, back to what I was saying at the beginning, the TikToker or the Reel or whatever that I was watching, he was saying how it's not that Americans aren't well traveled. It's just that the United States is the size of like all of Europe and then some.
Yes.
So the amount of time it takes for us to go from California to the East Coast, you can travel 6, 7, 8 countries, in between that 6-hour flight, essentially. So I like that he put that into perspective. I do think that there is so much history here that we certainly should be showing our children, especially the things here. I think that all kids should go to DC at least once. I think the history there, I think the museums there are fantastic. The monuments are incredible. The food places are fantastic. Those are things that I think we should definitely see, especially Boston. I've never been to Boston. Have you been to Boston?
I have.
Do you love it?
Yeah, one of my best friends went to Harvard. And so for her master's, so I went and I visited her there. And it was so cool. So where Harvard is, just being able to wander through campus was amazing. And then Boston is right there. So I always like to do a Red City bus tour.
Okay.
Wherever I go. We did this in Vienna as well, because then you can see all of the sights quickly. And you can jump off if you want and jump back on. It's like a taxi.
Yes.
And so we did one in Boston. And I love Boston.
That is so cool. I need to go there for sure. Is there a place in the United States that you think is underrated that you would totally highly recommend you go?
I don't know. I can't think of anything right now. I used to go to New York all the time when I was married. And everyone knows about the Hamptons, obviously.
Yes.
And Montauk is at the very end of Long Island.
Okay.
And it was my only time beach camping. Because I'm not a camper, but I would do beach camping there again because it was absolutely beautiful.
Really?
Yes. But I believe my ex-mother-in-law had to reserve that space like a year and a half in advance.
That's very typical. Very typical. So one thing that I think is really underrated, at least in the United States, I would recommend if anybody has the opportunity to do so, after I just talked about road trips, I recommend you go from East Coast to West Coast or West Coast to East Coast. And I've done this with my kids. My sister was being transferred in the military, and her husband at the time I think was in Bahrain for the military as well. And so what I did was I took my younger three. I was gonna say my younger two, but I took my younger three. We flew to DC. We did 3 or 4 days in DC, and then we stayed the night at her house in Virginia, and then we totally road tripped back. And what we did was, what do you want to see along the way? So like the kids, were Denver Bronco fans, so they wanted to go see the stadium. So like we kind of
so fun.
We like ventured down, but then we wanted to see my aunt who lives in Arkansas. So like we kind of like went down. We wanted to see Nashville. We wanted to see Memphis. So we went down. We wanted to get good barbecue. There were things, and so we got to see a lot. And I will tell you, there is a song by Jason Aldean where he talks about flyover states. Like you don't realize, like you can look over when you're flying over Kansas, let's just say, and you see the wheat barrels or whatever they are. They might not be wheat, but whatever it is, they're like the big barrels that you see on these farms, and you see how the lots and the parcels of land are perfectly cut, and you can see all this, and it's like, damn, there's nothing there. And then you drive through it, and it is a completely different perspective. Driving through these states, it was incredible. Those big ass things that you see, the round things, they are like tall, buildings tall.
Wow.
Yeah, they're huge, and it's amazing to see all that stuff. So to me, I really recommend that. I think another thing too is you get to see the Amish community too. There's certain areas that have Amish communities, and I think that that's something that the average American doesn't understand or see. And the food and stuff that they make and the way that they prepare it and the things that they make and stuff like that. I just think being able to culturize, if that's a word, yourself with those things is very important. So I love traveling in the United States, but we all know my favorite's Europe.
Oh, you know what? Maine, Kennebunkport. That was a last minute trip, and that was amazing. That's Bushtown. I didn't know until I arrived there because that's where the Bush compound is.
You had told me that.
And Kennebunkport was so beautiful in the summer. It's so beautiful.
What is there to do there?
Eat, which is always my favorite thing to do. Oh my gosh, the lobster is amazing. And we took bikes and rode around, and they had cute little shops, and it was just beautiful.
Would you take the girls there, or would you do that more as a couple?
I could take the girls there. They might get a little bored, but it was a couple thing.
It's good to be bored, I think, for those kids.
I think so,
Those
too.
kids, meaning all kids, not your kids specifically. Sounded all rude. Is there a place in Europe that you feel is highly underrated?
I haven't been to Europe. Well, I was in Vienna for 9 hours.
Yes.
And I absolutely loved it. And I would love to go back to Vienna because I missed the opportunity to do a concert, and they're known for their music. I did do Beethoven's museum, and that was cool. But I would love to go back and do a concert. But I have barely scratched the surface of Europe. Hopefully I'll do some more this summer.
Yes, I want you to.
I still haven't determined exactly where I'm going to go. Portugal and Spain is kind of the direction I'm looking at, but something else might come up instead. Who knows?
I've never been to Portugal, but I have been to Spain, and I loved Spain. The people are so fantastic, and my broken Spanish really does go very far there, so it is very easy for me to communicate with people there, which is great. And
really, because I was concerned about that with like our Spain Spanish versus like Mexican Spanish.
Yes, so it's enough, and my dad speaks Cuban Spanish, which is hilarious, and is fluent.
Wow,
yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my dad speaks fluent Spanish.
That's impressive.
Yeah, well, he grew up in East LA, and then when he owned Western Firearms, I mean, that was in the city of Bell. And
where does the Cuban Spanish come from?
I think that there's a lot of Cubanos that live in the area where Western Auto was. So it was in the city of Bell.
Okay.
And so that's the impression that I'm under. I could be wrong, but I think that they have a big Cuban population.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's Bell is primarily Latino, and Latino, is that the right word? Latina. Okay, it's primarily Latino, and so my dad, in order to converse with his consumer, he had to do what he needed to do. So it was nice because I would hear when I would work there during summers and stuff, I would pick things up, or I'd ask the guys that I worked with. I mean, I was little, but I would ask the guys that I worked with, how do you say, like, can I help you? And stuff like that. So they would teach me how to say things. And cool. I mean, very quick phrases, but I mean, that has gotten me very, very far in my travels. So no, and in Spain, the Spanish is different. They're a little more formal, which is very European of them. But no, other than that, you would totally be fine if you could speak some broken Spanish.
Good to know then, because I can speak some Spanish.
The one thing I didn't care for was the food.
Really?
Here's the thing. I think I really enjoy a nice sit-down meal, and they have a lot of tapas there. So you go and you order, which the great thing about that is you get to try a lot of things, right? But when you just want like a big steak or you just want a burger, like, and I'm sure they have them, but it was very difficult to find. I did love Spain. I thought it was beautiful. I thought the people were beautiful. I thought beautiful in not only looks, but in their nature. Naturally. And then I was really impressed with the city of Sevilla. Specifically, they have a lot of history there. There's a lot of Muslim and Christian art and architecture in their buildings. It's so great. So I think that you would love that. I will tell you, I think the most underrated city, big city in Europe, in my opinion, is Vienna. So it's funny that you said that you would love to go back, because I think Austria, many people are like, oh, I'm going to go to France. I'm going to go to Germany. I'm going to go to Russia, wherever it is that they're going to go. Russia's not part of Europe, but you know what I mean. And I think that a lot of times people going, oh, I'm going to go to Austria. You don't hear that a lot.
That's true.
So I also like Slovakia. things are very inexpensive there and great people also. But I really loved Vienna as well. And I love the outskirts. They have fantastic wines there and stuff too. So I highly recommend that. So I think in like summary, when you're booking a vacation, I think the best thing that you can do is, as far as planning goes, is decide what it is that you want. Right? Do you want to be on a cruise ship and see a bunch of different things? Maybe not see everything, but a bunch of different things and kind of expose yourself to some culture? Or do you want to totally, completely immerse yourself in it? And I think a lot of it too has to do with time. So how much time do you have? How much money you're willing to spend and what your budget is? Obviously, those are things that are going to play a part. But I think all in all, there's travel in everybody's budget. I think it's just about prioritizing it. So that's our 2 cents today on traveling. We're here for all your travel needs as well, not because we get paid for it, but because we love it. So if you have any questions, totally reach out to us. And thank you for being here and talking all things travel.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.